Some women arrive in a man's life not to complete him, but to awaken what he refused to confront. And when that awakening comes, it does not come with tenderness, but with truth. Have you ever wondered why a woman's absence can echo louder than her presence ever did? It's because when a woman finally remembers who she is, everything she leaves behind begins to crumble, especially the illusion of control. Her silence becomes his mirror. Her peace becomes his punishment. Her freedom, the death of his ego. He once thought her love was his to measure, to control, to mold into something that served his sense of importance. But love, real love, does not survive in the hands of domination. It thrives only where truth can breathe. In Jungian terms, his ego fed on projection. He needed her admiration to silence the hollowness he carried inside. Every compliment, every sacrifice she made was another patch for the emptiness he never dared to face. He mistook her empathy for devotion, her softness for surrender. He didn't know that the feminine heart, when awakened, carries both gentleness and fire, that she was not meant to orbit his validation, but to reveal its fragility. And so when she stopped explaining herself, when she stopped seeking to be understood, something in him shattered. The mirror that once reflected his worth went dark. He began to realize she had never belonged to him. She had only reflected back the illusion of his completeness. It begins quietly, a subtle shift in her energy. She no longer tries to convince him. She no longer waits for his change. She simply sees. And in that seeing, she awakens. For too long, she mistook attachment for love, suffering for strength, endurance for loyalty. But the true feminine does not prove herself through pain. She reveals herself through presence. She understands now that her worth is not something he can give or take away. It is not earned through how much she tolerates, but through how deeply she honors herself. When she walks away, she is not rejecting him. She is returning to herself. This is the individuation process, as Jung described it. The reclamation of the self from the illusions of dependency. She is no longer his reflection. She is her own embodiment. And her energy shifts from trying to be loved to simply being loved. There comes a moment in every man's journey when the woman he took for granted becomes the echo he cannot silence. He scrolls through memories, conversations, her laughter, searching for the place where he lost her. But he cannot find it. Because what he lost was not just her presence, it was his mask. He feels it like withdrawal, the emptiness after control fades. He tries to replace her, to replicate the feeling, to rebuild the illusion, but no imitation satisfies, because what she offered was never performance, it was truth, and truth cannot be replaced. This is the collapse of the persona, Jung's word for the false self, the version of him constructed to be admired. Without her reflection, he meets his own shadow, the parts of himself he denied for years, the fear of inadequacy, the hunger for validation, the wound of unworthiness. She was not the one who broke him. She was the one who revealed where he was already broken. And yet this breaking is not destruction, it is initiation. For in losing the woman who knew her worth, he is invited, if he is brave enough, to finally find his own. Meanwhile, she blooms, not loudly, not in revenge, but in quiet self-return. The kind of peace that does not demand to be seen, only felt. She begins to move differently, speak differently, choose differently. Her boundaries become sacred, not barriers but blessings. Her solitude becomes power, not punishment. And in this space, she no longer defines herself by who stays or leaves. She defines herself by what feels aligned. The world begins to mirror her new vibration. Opportunities flow, peace replaces chaos, and love comes not as rescue, but as resonance. She no longer needs him to see her. She sees herself. No longer needs closure. She is the closure. In this moment, she embodies the alchemy of the individuated feminine, the woman who has integrated her shadow, her softness, her strength. She knows her worth not because someone finally recognized it, but because she stopped negotiating it. And while he wrestles with the emptiness she left behind, she dances with the fullness she has become. He may remember her name in moments of silence. He may replay the last words, the last glance, the last chance. But what he cannot undo is her awakening. For every man who once sought power through her submission must face this truth. The end of her need is the end of his ego, and her freedom is the beginning of something far greater than revenge. It is the birth of her peace. She no longer carries the weight of being the savior, the nurturer, the endless forgiver. She carries only her truth, and that truth is simple. Love does not require her to lose herself. She knows now that what she gives must flow from wholeness, not from lack. She knows that her silence can be louder than her pleading, her peace more powerful than her pain. She is not the lesson, she is the liberation. And as she walks into her next chapter, radiant, grounded, unshaken, the echo of her presence remains a mirror to every soul who once mistook her softness for weakness. Because now she remembers what the world tried to make her forget, that the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.